No. Now, Elizabeth Swaney competed in the women's half-pipe event in the recent Winter Olympics. She didn't fall over, but she didn't attempt any tricks. As a result, she came last. Elizabeth was born and grew up in the US, but was representing Hungary in the event, even though, strictly speaking, Hungary didn't ask her to. Some have been critical of Elizabeth for this. Some have said she's an inspiration. Either way, she's on the line. Afternoon, Elizabeth.
Good afternoon.
How long have you been skiing for? Have you always been an enthusiastic skier?
Right. That's a good question, but I wanted to just start off by congratulating you all on the strong Irish representation at the Games with 5 amazing athletes, and it's alpine, cross country, and snowboarding and freestyle skiing. So, and I'm very inspired by Brendan Newby. So love watching them, but I have been skiing for 8 years.
Right, and in terms of, because you're obviously, people will see from your accent, you were born in the US. Have you tried in competitive events in the US as well?
Right, yeah, I have skied in the US, skiing competitively, as I believe most competitors have in freestyle skiing.
But would it have been your first hope, perhaps, to be on the US team in the Winter Olympics?
My first hope? That's a good question. I hadn't really thought of that. I just wanted to represent my heritage and explore my heritage more, and Hungary seemed like a great fit.
Right, okay. And which of your parents has Hungarian heritage?
So my mother is Hungarian.
Right, okay, your mother is Hungarian. And so was it, so describe for us the process where you got to represent Hungary in the Winter Olympics then.
Right, that's a good question. So I was just evaluating my options for the Olympics, and again wanted to explore my heritage more, and just love Hungary. So decided to represent Hungary on the international competition scene, and eventually like the World Cups and then the Olympics. I was so honored to, and still am honored to have represented Hungary.
Okay. You just decided? Did they not have a say in the matter whether you're representing them or not?
Right, yeah. Every country, of course, has a say on whether or not athletes can represent them. So I was fortunate to have been offered this by Hungary.
Okay, and so did you go through a process where you had to qualify to represent Hungary is what I'm driving at here?
And are you referring to the Olympics or the World Cup Tour, international competition?
To the Winter Olympics specifically, yes.
Oh, right, yeah, of course. So every athlete needs to be nominated by their country, and I was grateful to have been nominated by Hungary, just like any other athlete would need to be.
Right, okay. And so on what basis did they nominate you?
Right, so that's a good question. I know that every Olympic committee decides which athletes go to the Olympics. I would first, and every athlete needs to qualify based on kind of the International Olympic Committee and National Olympic Committee rules for that specific game. So I suppose there was a meeting in Hungary, and I was offered an invitation, and all the other athletes in Hungary were offered a invitation based on what the Olympic Committee of their country decided. Okay, so
my understanding, maybe I'm incorrect, was that you found a loophole where if you just competed in as many events as possible without falling over, you would eventually qualify for the Hungarian team. Is that right?
Right, that's a good question. So there is actually no loopholes in the process. I just try to do my best at every competition, and was pushing myself to do 360s, alley-oops, and a few tricks in each run. I actually did have a number of falls when I was training, and I believe during some competitions, and the judges scored me as appropriately or as they believed. So I try and do my best. I worked hard to get to the World Cup circuit, and I was just scored at those events. I believe most of the athletes competed at most of the World Cup tours throughout the Olympic qualification process.
Right. Okay. Now, and you did come last in the event in the Winter Olympics. What kind of placings do you were you used to getting in the previous competitions you've taken part in?
Right. I'm not used to getting any specific placement, but that's a good question. I placed differently, I believe, almost at every single competition, and there were 10 competitions over the last 2 years for the Olympics. So that's
right.
a good question. I have like a fifth profile online which details all of that.
Well, did you win many of them, or become second or third in many of them?
Right, that's a good question. I did not win any World Cup during that process. One thing I'd like to point out is all the women I competed against and with over the past few years. They're all very supportive. Everyone who I've talked to or has been interviewed that I've read about has supported my participation at the games and believes I should be there. So I look to them as kind of the experts of whether or not I belong if someone has questions.
And when you say you were exploring your heritage by representing Hungary, what does that mean? What did you find out about your heritage?
Right, that's a good question. So just exploring someone's family heritage as anyone might do, and just learned about my family history in Hungary and the challenges, struggles, and successes that my ancestors and family had in the country.
Mm. I don't understand, though, how skiing was going to teach you any of those things.
Right. I believe, when someone's representing a country, they're encouraged to explore their heritage just like I did. So it was a motivating factor for me to learn about my heritage.
Right, okay. You also represented Venezuela between 2013 and 2015 at skiing. What part of your family has Venezuelan heritage?
Right, so my mother also has Venezuelan heritage, her side of the family.
Right, so your mother's from Hungary, but also from Venezuela?
Right,
okay,
right.
That's a very...
Well, multiple.
I tell us the story of that. That sounds very exotic. Are her parents from Venezuela, or how did that work?
Right. So I have family heritage from both countries.
Okay, but do you know how you have family heritage? I mean, you know.
Yeah. So her side of the family is Venezuelan as well.
Are from Venezuela as well? Yes, we got that. But did she have a Venezuelan father and a Hungarian mother? That kind of thing. That's
right. Yeah, her side of the family is Venezuelan as well.
Right. Okay. So that's all you know.
Right, her side of the family is Venezuelan as well.
Okay, so you don't know the details, though. I was just wondering, did you explore that part of your heritage when you were skiing?
Right, I've explored my family heritage just like any athlete may.
When you're in your 30s now, and sadly all sporting careers come to an end. I understand you also once ran against Arnold Schwarzenegger to be governor of California. Do you think you might return to politics?
Right, that's a good question. I'm just trying to take it one day at a time, and I'm not sure what's going to happen tomorrow or the next week. So just, again, trying to take it one day at a time.
Okay. Elizabeth Swaney, thank you very much for speaking to us today.
Thank you, Sean.
Thank you, too. That was very illuminating. Right, we'll take a break. After that, a pain in your special place.
Moncrieff.
With Gas Networks Ireland. Multi-purpose fuel used for heating, cooling, hot water or cooking. Gasnetworks.ie/move to gas.
This is News Talk.
That's nice. What is it, a sapphire?
A diamond. A very rare diamond. Jack, I want you to draw me like one of your French girls. Wearing this.
All right.
Wearing only this.
Ooh, you cheeky mare. Anyway, that's a clip from Titanic. Today, on this day in 1998, Titanic became the first film to gross $1 billion. It was nominated for 14 Academy Awards and won 11 of them. And it was also, at the time, the most expensive film ever made at the time, and for $200 million, and went on to gross $1 billion. And of course, it was James Cameron, an epic James Cameron production, and a typically poorly written James Cameron production. We were talking though before the break to Elizabeth Swaney. Elizabeth represented Hungary in the in the just gone Winter Olympics, though she has represented Venezuela before as well in various skiing events, both because she wanted to explore her Venezuelan Hungarian ancestry, even though she didn't seem to know that much about it, but she's still exploring, presumably. I thought that was the pain in your special play section with all the great questions. Yeah, we weren't expecting her to be like that, to be honest with you. That we kind of thought it would be an Eddie the Eagle type thing, that she said, you know, what the hell. No, the reason why she was representing Hungary was basically there's some sort of loophole in the rules. If you just turn up to enough events and say, I'm representing Hungary, you automatically become part of the Hungarian team. Now, the Hungarian team didn't put her up in a hotel or fly her over there or anything like that. She paid for all that stuff herself. So Hungary were kind of going, yeah, technically by the rules she is representing Hungary, but she's not really part of the Hungarian team. And she just seemed to love all my questions. I don't know why that is. No one's ever loved my questions so much ever before. Or maybe she was just trying to think of an answer to any of those questions. Monica, who is our regular listener, regular correspondent to us in Massachusetts, so well used to the kind of weather we are experiencing at the moment, sent in a long email with various tips for people. But, you know, a couple of useful things she says is if you're prone to power loss in your house, and this is almost certainly going to happen in some parts of the country over the next 24 hours. She says minimize time opening the fridge or the freezer. Have flashlight batteries and candles out on tables before possible lights out. Clear in house walkways as much as possible, which is actually a very good tip, especially if there's kids leaving toys around the place because you don't want to trip over something in the dark. And she says whiteout is real. Think really dense fog, but bright white. Fatalities over here have happened because people think they know more than the experts. Blizzards can be scary, but you can get through it. If I can get through the winter of 2015, there's hope for everyone. And she says, be safe and take care and be good as much as you can. Fair enough. Left a bit of leeway there, Monica, and thanks for that. Owen, though, has a very different take on this. Owen says, please give us a break from these constant updates on the weather. When I was young, the schools weren't closed with a couple of inches of snow. There was no central heating in the schools or in homes. We managed. We are now the snowflake generation in another sense of the word. Now every gale is given a name or a hurricane category. We are given colour weather alerts, orange, red, etc. We haven't quite developed this lingo in 2010 when we really had prolonged snow and we had the lowest recorded temperatures in Ireland on record. Has this something to do with the demise of Christian religions and their replacement with a new climate change religion? Every windy day or snowfall is the equivalent of the appearance of the Blessed Virgin, says Owen. God, there's a lot there to be angry about, Owen. There's a lot to unpack. Now, I can't really address any of your complaints there, Owen, other than your view of the past is, as many people's view of the past is, that schools were never closed in bad weather. Yes, schools were closed in bad weather, even when you were a young fella. In fact, if you look at the Irish Times today, there's a letter from someone saying in something like 1947, they insisted on going to school. It was a snowy day. They turned up at school. Nobody was there, even the teacher. Because they'd closed the school because of the bad weather. The practice of giving names to them, I don't know, you'd have to ask a meteorologist about this, but I don't think it's got anything to do with the demise of Christian religion, because religion is religion, climate science is science. And if you look up in the dictionary, Owen, they're two completely different things. One of them involves proof. You can guess which one it is. Siobhan says, I've been sitting in my car outside a shopping centre in Munster and watching people come out. A large number of women are coming out with cake boxes, presumably containing cakes, and men are emerging with slabs of beer. Yes, that's people. Some people, I suppose, are kind of hoping that the whole thing might turn into a party. Now, there is a condition many women suffer from and sometimes aren't even aware of it. And even when they are, it can be misdiagnosed. It's called vestibulodynia, or vulval pain. On the line is British gynaecologist David Nuns from the Vulval Pain Society in the UK. Good afternoon, David.
Hello, hi.
Now, if a woman presents with vulval pain, could that be diagnosed in various ways?
Yes, so it's usually diagnosed by a general practitioner or a gynecologist based on the history and also examination of the woman with a good light. Examination of the vulva.
And more typically, would it be seen to be thrush or a condition similar to that?
Well, there's three main groups of problems. There's the infections like thrush. There are skin conditions like dermatitis, eczema, and then there are the pain syndromes, vulvodynia. So those are the three main categories.
And the pain syndromes, were they relatively recently identified?
No, they've been around for many, many years. They've just not been diagnosed correctly by a lot of health professionals. So they're often put down to thrush or infection when actually that's a misdiagnosis. They've been around for many, many years.
What's the difference here, if you like, because presumably thrush is an infection that can be treated. Is